Hello children, let me welcome you to the virtual class of the Brihan Mumbai Mahanagar Palika. My name is Shraddha teacher. Children, we are in the middle of this COVID-19 pandemic, and because of that we are not able to go to school, but that doesn't mean we are going to stop learning. So we are going to do many lessons which are very interesting from your textbook through the virtual class here. So let us do a lesson in English today. So children, as promised earlier, I'm back with a lesson in standard 9th English, and we are going to do part 2 of the lesson that we started last time. So remember what we were doing in the previous video. We talked about the lesson Autumn, which was a beautiful poem based on nature and which was actually a work which was translated by an English poet, and it was written by a very famous Indian poet who used to write in Sanskrit called Kalidasa. Okay, so in the previous part of the lesson that we did, we discussed about all the activities which were part of the warming up part of your lesson. Now we had so many different and interesting activities in that particular part of the lesson, so we had to take up a lot of time, and we did one entire video on only doing the warming up part of this particular poem. Let us move on and let us quickly revise what we did last time before moving forward. So we talked about these images, you remember, and I asked you to notice carefully and look at them as to what are the changes which are happening in these two images. So in the first image you have a tree which is growing from a fully bloomed green tree to a tree which is bare, which does not have any leaves, and there is a lot of ice around it. Okay, and in the other image also we saw there is bright sunshine and the sky is clear and the birds are flying, and suddenly you see the leaves flying all around. And then we decided that yes, this has got something to do with the changes in seasons. Okay, and then we decided that the lesson for today is autumn, and now autumn is also a season where there is a lot of shedding of leaves which occur from the trees. Then we talked about the poet of this particular poem. We said it was Kalidasa, and the original work was in Sanskrit. So he was the original person who has written this particular poem in another language, that is Sanskrit. Now you know children, English is a universal language. That is, there are many people around the world who understand English. That is why some languages, there are certain great works of art written in certain languages which do not have that much of scope. That means so many people around the world don't know that particular language. For example, Sanskrit. It is one of the oldest languages and it is the most beautiful of all languages. And we as Indians are very, very proud that it is part of our heritage. Okay, but unfortunately, today's situation is, even in India, you will see that people are not so much towards learning this particular language. So most of us, when I say most of us, even me, I do not have so much exposure to the language. So when there are certain beautiful poems, when there are beautiful dramas written in Sanskrit, then people want the world to know the beauty of such work, isn't it? And that is why these kind of works, these kind of poems, these kind of stories, these kind of dramas are often translated either into English or into any other language, which will help more and more people to read these works. So that is the idea behind translation or translating such things. Okay, so understanding the beauty and understanding the importance of this kind of work, there was this writer or this poet who translated it into English, and his name was Arthur W. Ryder. So he translated, he first read it, he tried to understand. Now see, for translation, remember one thing, if you have to translate something, you need to know both the languages. Okay, if I have to translate something from say Hindi to English, I should know Hindi. Okay, I should have a good vocabulary in Hindi in order to transfer it to English. So I should know both the languages. So this person, in spite of being a foreigner, this Arthur W. Ryder, he was having a good knowledge. He had a good knowledge of English as well as of
Sanskrit, and that is why he translated this particular work of Kalidasa, who was called as Mahakavi Kalidasa, okay, into English. And therefore, we people like us who do not know much of Sanskrit are lucky enough that we are able to read and enjoy and understand such great works of art. Okay, so that was about what we did last time. Now in today's lesson, we will not waste time. We will read this poem. We will try to understand the meaning of the poem, and also we will do whatever exercises are part of this lesson in the English workshop part. Okay, so in the English workshop part also, children, if you see, there are certain you can say questions or certain points which are for self-study. Alright, we will come to that when we will discuss about the workshop part. So, after having discussed so much about this poem Autumn, let us now see what the poem has to offer us. Okay, so this is the poem Autumn. So let me read it for you, and at the same time I will try to incorporate beautiful images also, so it keeps your interest going. So the autumn comes a fair maiden. Okay, so here autumn is being compared to a fair maiden. Now, who's a fair maiden? A fair maiden is someone who is very beautiful, a girl who's very beautiful. Now, remember, children, in today's times, the idea of beauty, of traditional beauty, everything has changed. So, in today's times, we do not consider a girl who is only fair to be beautiful. Okay, so for beauty, you have to have certain other qualities also. It is not enough for you to be just fair and your features should be good. You should have a good personality, you should have good behavior. All this together today we consider it as beauty. But then remember, this poem was written way long back. So at that time, a maiden who was fair was supposed to be very beautiful. So the autumn comes a maiden fair, in slenderness and grace. Now, slender, someone who's slender means someone who's very, you cannot say thin. A person who's thin, very thin, is supposed to be unhealthy. So, slender means someone who's very, you can use this Hindi word here, you can say very nazuk or very delicate. Okay, and graceful also. The autumn is like a girl who's very fair, who's very beautiful, who's very slender, and who's very graceful. Graceful means, look at this picture. See how the girl looks? She looks very graceful, isn't it? The way she's walking. A person who dances well, a very good dancer, we say, oh, she's such a graceful dancer. Graceful means the movements are very, very refined, they're very fine. Okay, so the autumn here is being compared to a fair maiden or to a beautiful girl with nodding rice stems in her hair and lilies in her face. So her hair is also very long. You can see in this picture also, she's got rice stems in her hair. So she's decorated her hair with stems of rice. That means autumn is the season when rice fields are lush and they are blooming. Okay, so that is the season when autumn comes in. That is why autumn is dressing up, or she is decorating her hair with rice stems. You can use only those things which are available to you. So in the season where autumn comes, what happens is there is rice all around in the fields. So she's using rice stems to adorn her hair. Okay, and lilies in her face. That means during the season of autumn, there are a lot of flowers also blooming around. So that talks about the beauty of this particular season. Now when I say eat mangoes, so when can you eat mangoes? You can eat mangoes only during the summers, isn't it? In this season, there is no way you can get fresh mangoes. Alright, so in the same way, when you're comparing autumn with a fair maiden, and you are saying that she's wearing rice stems in her hair, she's decorating her face with lilies, that means she's coming in such a season where there is rice around, when there is paddy in the fields, and when there are flowers blooming all around. In addition to this, see, she's also worn flowers of grass she is clad. In flowers of grasses she is clad. So you can see here grasses, and you can see sometimes when you go to places where there are extensive grassland, you will see lot of small tiny flowers in the grass. So her clothes are like these flowers of grass. So she's not wearing dry grass, she's not wearing brown grass, okay, she's wearing green grass in which there are a lot of flowers also. As she moves along, now as she's going from one place to another, you will also see birds greet her with a cooing glad. So birds, they greet her, they call out to her with their cooing. Glad means the birds are also happy in this season, because along with fruits there are a lot of flowers also around, and there are lots of fruits and there are lots of flowers, means there is enough food for these birds. Okay, so the birds are also happy, they are glad in the season, and the birds start calling out to her like a bracelet's tinkling sound. So usually it is the anklet which tinkles. Anklet means we call it payal. Okay, on the payal you have multiple number of ghungroos, and they make a nice tinkling noise or sound. But here it is said that the bracelet is also tinkling. And how is the bracelet tinkling? Just like the birds cooing sound. Okay, so that means that we are directly comparing the season of autumn to a girl, and at the same time we are trying to say that this is a season when there is rice all around, when there is paddy all around, when maybe there are other you can say crops also, there are flowers and there is grass and the birds are happy, and you can say entirely on the whole if you see, it is a very happy season. Alright, so this was the first stanza. Let us move on and let us check what the second stanza has in store for us. So this is the second stanza. Now children, after we do both the stanzas, I will bring out one point of difference. Okay, we come to the second stanza now. A diadem adorns the night. So what is a diadem? A diadem is a kind of a crown, you can say, or a tiara, okay, or something which adorns a lady's head if she is in a special position. Now who wears crowns? You must have seen queens wearing crowns. You must have seen people who win beauty contests, they wear crowns. So a diadem actually means a crown, something which adorns your head. So what is adorning here? Adorning means adding beauty, to make something more beautiful or attractive. Of multitudinous stars. Multitudinous means numerous or multiple. So autumn is also like you can say diadem or the crown of stars in the night sky. So something which is very attractive in the night sky. Her silken robe is white moonlight. What is a robe? A robe is a piece of clothing. So autumn's robe is made up of white moonlight, and it is set free from cloudy bars. Now cloudy bars means patches of clouds. Okay, so the night is not cloudy. So she has worn nice moonlight. See, when it is cloudy, you cannot see moonlight. Okay, but here they are saying that her robe is of white moonlight. Now I couldn't find an image for a white robe, so this will give you an idea of what a robe is. And it is free from the cloudy bars. Okay, and what is there on her face? Her face is like the radiant moon. Radiant means brightly shining moon. And also bewitching smiles are shown. So she is like the moon, which is smiling, shining brightly at others. So bewitching means very attractive. Okay, or bewitching means which gives you a lot of joy, happiness, which attracts you, pulls you towards something. She seems a slender maid who soon will be a woman grown. So, what does Autumn look like? Autumn looks like a slender maid. Who's a slender maid? Again, I told you, someone who's a very, you can say, delicate. Maid means a girl who will very soon become a woman. Okay? So, this entire poem, children, if you see, it is describing the season autumn, and it is comparing the season autumn to a girl. Now, what kind of a girl is she? She is slender, she is graceful, she is fair, she is beautiful. Okay. Now, when I came to the second stanza, I told you that we will try and find out the difference between the first stanza and the second one. So come on, let us quickly go back to the first stanza. Okay, so if you look at this first stanza, you can see things like bird cooing. Okay, you can see things like rice stems and things which are describing the earth. Okay, in other ways you can say things, these are things which are describing the earth around you. You can also say that these are things which you can see during the daytime. Grass and flowers and birds cooing, all these things you can see during the daytime. But if you go to the next part of this poem, that is the next stanza, here this particular stanza, you will see a lot of things which talk about the night. Okay, the moon, you can see the stars, all these things you will be able to see, clouds you will be able to see during the night. So this is also one thing the poet has tried to create an image about things which you see during the day and things which you can see during the night. Alright children, so this was the entire poem about the translation of the poem which was done by A.W. Ryder for the poem that is the poem that we saw now, Autumn. Now children, this is the poem which is there in your textbook, but let me show you. This is not the entire poem. There's one more stanza to it. We do not study it, of course. We will not study it because it is not there in the textbook, but I think I will show it to you that we have one more stanza to this particular poem. Okay, before that let us see and understand the meaning of these two stanzas that we have studied now. So in the first stanza, the poet says, he considers Autumn to be a young, beautiful girl who charms a young man's heart. She is slender and graceful. Rice stems decorate her hair and lilies adorn her face. Adorn means, meaning we discussed, isn't it? Adorn means making something more beautiful. Decorating something, you can say. She wears the dress of grass. She is greeted by the birds which sound like the tinkling of the bracelets. So this is the meaning, you can say, summary of the first first stanza. Let's go to the second stanza here now. In the second stanza, the poet says that the young girl is like the shining, attractive crown worn by the night sky. Okay, so she is like a crown made up of stars which is worn by the night sky. She has worn the moonlight in the form of a robe, and her face is like the shining full moon. And she smiles at everyone in order to attract them to her. The poet says that autumn, the season, is like a young girl who's on the verge of maturing and becoming a woman. Okay, so this was about the summary of the poem, Autumn. So what did you understand from this? You understood that the poet is doing nothing but comparing autumn and its qualities, or the qualities of that particular season, or what all things are special to that particular season, and saying that that season is like a beautiful young girl. Okay, now just like I told you, we have one more stanza, children, which has been left out in the textbook. Let us just look at it. See, the first two stanzas we already read and we know what their meaning is. This is the third stanza which has been left out from our book. Alright, So you can read it, you can pause the video and read it. I will not waste time in explaining this. So this is only for your additional general knowledge that there is one more stanza to this particular poem. Okay, let us move on and let us see what the English workshop has in store for us. So you are supposed to find 3 lines each that contain images of nature in the autumn season. So I will not write the lines for you, I will give you the clues here. Okay, the important words in each of these lines so that you can try and locate the lines yourself. So which are the 3 words which contain images of nature in the autumn season? During daytime. So during daytime, what all things can you see around you in the autumn? I will give you the words. You're supposed to find out which line they belong to. So in this way, you will get an additional, you can say, opportunity to read the poem again. So during daytime, you see rice stems, okay? You see lilies and grass flowers. So these are the images that you can associate with the season autumn, especially during the daytime. Okay, now children, don't we see all these things at night? Of course you can see them. You can go to a field, you can turn on your torch and you can see rice stems. You can go to a garden and if there is light there, you can see lilies. Okay, you can also see grass with artificial lighting, but you'll be able to see this clearly during daytime. That is why these images are, you can say, you're associating it with daytime. Alright, now what about night time? At night, which are the lines which contain images of nature in the autumn season at night? So let us see which are the clue words here. So you have moon, you have stars, and you have clouds. Okay, so these 3 ideas are the ones which are associated with autumn season at night. So look at this image is beautiful and it contains all the 3 ideas in one. You can see clouds, you can see the full shining moon, and you can see the twinkling stars in the night sky. Okay, so this was one more, you can say, idea about what things we can see at night. So find out which lines they come from in the poem. So this was the first exercise which was part of your English workshop part. Let us move on and let's go to the next one here now. So you are supposed to pick out words from the poem that describe the following. So list them in column A and you have to substitute each of these describing words with another phrase of the same meaning. Or else, I can also tell you this, that one word, the word which is given here, is the poet's point of view. You have to write your own point of view, your own words. For example, see the first one is done for us. So the autumn. So in poets, the words of the poet, autumn is like a fair maiden or like a beautiful young girl. Now your own words, now I will tell you what I feel about it. You are supposed to write your own ideas. So these are my ideas that I'm sharing with you. Okay, you could have your own idea also. So for me, I don't think that the autumn is a fair maiden because I'm not a poetess. I feel that the autumn is just one of the seasons. So like you have summer, like you have monsoon, like you have winter, autumn is also one of the seasons. If I was a poet, maybe I would have had a different answer. Now all of you have different personalities, you have different ways of thinking. Some of you might be thinking from a scientific mind, some of you might have a mathematical kind of mind. Okay, so you think, what does the word autumn mean to you? To the poet, it means a fair maiden. To me, it means just one of the seasons. Let us look at one more example. See here, stars. So according to the poet, the stars are equal to a diadem or to a crown. Okay, but for me, The stars are just twinkling objects in the sky. Okay, because I'm not at all poetic. So for me, I feel that the stars are twinkling objects in the sky. Think, what do you think? What are stars? Alright, one more example and then I will ask you to do the remaining. Moonlight. So in the poet's language, moonlight is like a robe which has been worn by the season, that is autumn, or it is a robe which has been worn by the fair maiden who represents autumn here. What do you think, children? What do you feel the moonlight is? Okay, and the last one is cooing of the birds. So decide, think according to the poet, what has he written, and according to you, what do you think it is? So this is also a small assignment as we go along with the lesson. Alright, coming to the next part of the English workshop, you have to find one example of each of the following from the poem. So what is it that you have to find out? You have to find out one example of simile. Now children, we will not go into understanding what a simile is because we have already done lessons based on figures of speech. Let me just tell you, simile and metaphor, these are used for comparing two things. And this is a poem which is based on comparison, isn't it? We are directly comparing or indirectly comparing a season, autumn, with a fair, young, tender girl. So you will find various examples of simile. Now simile means when you compare two things using the word like or using the word as. Simple. And metaphor means when you are calling one thing the other. You're comparing two things, but you're calling one thing the other. So come on, let's see what examples of simile and metaphor I have found out in the poem. Then you will find out one example of your own. So the first example which I have found out for simile is, birds greet her with their cooing glad like a bracelet's tinkling sound. So here the sound of the cooing of the bird is being compared to the bracelet's tinkling, and you can see here the word like has been used, so it is an example of simile. What about the next one? They've asked us to find out an example of metaphor also. So for me, I have picked up the sentence. You may pick up any other sentence of your choice. So I feel that the autumn comes a fair maiden. So here the autumn has been compared to fair maiden, but the poet has not used words like or as. So in a way, he is directly calling the autumn a fair maiden, and therefore the comparison is like metaphor. Okay, the comparison is a metaphor because the comparison here is by calling one thing the other. So children, let's come to the last exercise that we are going to do for today as part of this poem, and that is writing the rhyme scheme of a poem. Now children, we all know, and we have studied earlier also, that rhyme schemes means it has got to do something to do with the rhyme. And what are rhymes? Rhymes are again related to rhyming words. Okay, rhyming words means two words which sound similar towards the end. Okay, so the last sounds of two words, when they sound the same, then they are called as rhyming words. So when you're writing the rhyming scheme of any poem, you are actually trying to write which words or which lines in the poem rhyme with each other. Now it is not necessary that all the words in the poem, in the last words, they will have the same sound. They may have different sounds, isn't it? So there may be different rhyming pairs in a poem. That is why we use different letters of the alphabet to indicate the rhyme. So we know all this, children. So now let us look at this particular poem and let us try to see what the rhyme scheme of this poem is. So let me read the poem first, highlighting the rhyming words. So you listen carefully and then we will decide which words are rhyming, and then we will try to give them names according to the letters of the alphabet. Okay? So the autumn comes a maiden fair, in slenderness and grace, with nodding rice stems in her hair and lilies in her face. In flowers of grasses she is clad, and as she moves along, birds greet her with their cooing glad, like a bracelet's tinkling song. So, did you listen to me carefully? So, which were the words which were rhyming or had the same kind of sound? Come on, let's try to identify those words. So, you had fair, which sounded the same as hair. Then you had grace, which sounded the same as face. So you have fair and hair, one pair of rhyming words. You have grace and face, the second pair of rhyming words. Then you had clad, which went with glad. And finally you had along, which went with song. Isn't it? So here you have three pairs of words which go along with each other. 4 pairs of words which sound like each other. So let us give them their names now. So fair and hair, our red boxes, let them call them as A and A. Grace and face, they are different sounds, so they need a different letter. We'll call them as B and B. Clad and glad again is a different sound, so we'll call them as C and C. And along and song is again a different sound, so we'll call them D and D. Done? So how will we write the rhyme scheme then? We will write the rhyme scheme as A, B, A, B. Okay? Fair with hair, B with B, that is grace with face. Then now, since clad is a new sound, so let us use the letter of the alphabet C here. So along is one more new sound, so we'll call along as D. So you have glad which goes with clad, so glad is C again because clad is C. And then because along is D, song also will be D. So what is the rhyme scheme of the first stanza of the poem Autumn? It is AB, AB, CD, CD. Now the next line you are supposed to decide, and you will decide what the rhyme scheme for the entire stanza is. Let me just hold your hand and take you there, and let us see what the first letter you will give, or what is the first rhyme that you will give this. So a diadem adorns the night. Now see, this is the sound of the letter T. So nowhere in the previous stanza you have seen the sound of the letter T. So this is a new sound for us. So let us give it a new name, E. Okay, now it is your job to follow and find out what the rhyme scheme for the second stanza in this poem will be. So children, that was our lesson for today. So we talked about autumn again here in the second video. We read the poem. We understood the meaning of the poem. We discussed new words which appeared in the poem. We also looked at some exercises in vocabulary and some exercises based on figures of speech. And also here we looked at what the rhyme scheme of the poem should be.
So children, now you have watched the video. So after you watch the video now, you will have to complete a few simple tasks. Now you might have watched the video on your computers or your laptops or your mobile phones. Now after you watch the video, what will you do? You will please go to the description box which is given below the video. So what is the description box? See, the description box looks like this. Alright, and after you go to the description box, you will see that there are a few questions there. Now what are these questions about? These questions are about the lesson that we just learned or the video that you just watched. So what will you do? You will think back properly about the lesson and you will try and answer these questions and note down the answers in your notebook if you want. Okay? After that, we have another task waiting. You will also click on the link which you will find in the description box to fill up the Google form. So now what is the Google form, children? It is nothing but a simple form. There are a few simple questions there about the video which you just saw and also about yourself. So these are the tasks now that you will have to complete after you watch each video. So children, wasn't that a very interesting lesson? I'm sure you learnt a lot of new things in this lesson. If you have liked this video, please hit the like button and also subscribe to my video so that you will get to see all the videos which I keep posting regularly.